All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the VENDO Flowium webinar. Really excited to be here with you, going over what is hopefully going to be a very interesting and actionable topic. Something that, I think doesn't get talked about enough, but is very important. And that is increasing the lifetime of Amazon shoppers, in particular through email marketing. So, from the point of acquisition to the point of, super customer or ambassador, whatever you want to call it, how can you increase that lifetime? And we're really excited to have Andrea Pullman from Flowium on with us today. So Andrea, I'll go ahead and hand the mic over to you and you can introduce yourself in Flowium.
That's such a great introduction. I don't even feel like I need to. No, I'm Andrea Pullman. I am the lead strategist at Flowium. We are an email marketing agency. We work across different email marketing service providers, so Klaviyo, MailChimp, HubSpot, etc. There's so many. And we love all of our partners that we work with. One of the main things that we do for our clients is we just try to make sure that your email marketing engine is working the way that it should be. So a big part of that for us is increasing how much people are spending at your businesses for obvious reasons. That's why we focus on e-commerce. So I'm very happy to be here. I'm very excited to talk a little bit more about what strategies you might be able to use in order to increase the lifetime value of all of your customers, but specifically your Amazon ones.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, and it's been awesome getting to know you and Flowium, and yeah, hopefully this will provide a lot of great insights for everybody. So just to give an understanding of the agenda for today. So first, we're going to talk about, why do you want to think about this, consider this, implement this into your strategy, right? Then we'll go into the different pathways for acquiring emails, both pre-purchase and post-purchase Amazon pathways. Andrea will dig into several different nurturing flows, and then we'll go over manual automations, which I know is kind of an oxymoron, but discussing how we can get as close as possible to creating what is normally looked at as commonplace kind of automations on the D2C side, right? Best practice, but on the Amazon side is almost impossible to do, right? But here at Vendo, we love to kind of stretch the limits of what's considered possible and impossible on on Amazon, and so we're excited to show you how you can kind of build those out to be as close to an automation as possible, and then leveraging a lot of D2C best practices to keep people purchasing, but how can we bring those over to the Amazon customers? So before we get into kind of some of the different pathways, the why, right? Why is this important? And if you're a D2C focused brand, it's probably pretty obvious why it's important, right? We work at Vendo with a lot of different CPG brands. And just to backtrack a little bit, we work with over 300 brands managing their Amazon and Walmart business, right? And so very often these brands are D2C first, and they come to Amazon and there's a lot of control that they don't have, right? They don't have access to their customers' email addresses. They don't have access to their customers, phone numbers for SMS marketing. They don't have access to a lot of customer data. And so that's a big disadvantage on Amazon compared to, D2C, where you kind of own that customer data. And so the thinking here and the reason why we kind of, put our heads together and came up with these solutions was we wanted to create the most D2C kind of esque experience as possible for the brands, and subsequently for the brand's customers, right? And so ultimately what that means is having a direct relationship with the Amazon customer and the customer with the brand. That's critical for any brand building. And if you're a brand that's bringing in a big chunk of your customers through Amazon, it's even more critical. So that's why we kind of sought out a solution for this. D2C brands that we work with, I hear that they do 10, 20, even 30% or more percent of their total sales through email marketing for D2C. But then on Amazon, it's like, zero, maybe a couple percent, if that. So there's a big opportunity there, and that's what we're going to be talking about today, is how you can leverage this opportunity and really get a competitive advantage, because there's not a lot of brands out there doing this, at least not at the scale that I think we're going to be going over. And again, I speak from having worked with hundreds and hundreds of brands on Amazon, and learning that, this is something missing from their toolbox. Andrea, anything on your end, just from a why perspective?
I think the big thing is that like with Amazon as a sales channel, you have to always remember that like Amazon wants to keep people there, which is not always in your best interest. So like let's figure out ways that we can get around that. That's like the biggest kind of hurdle.
Definitely, definitely. All right. So we'll go ahead and get into the good stuff here that you can start thinking about how you're going to take action with. So email acquisition pathways, like we alluded to earlier, there's pre-purchase pathways and post-purchase pathways, right? Because again, Amazon's not giving you that data within the Amazon marketplace. So you have to figure out how to do it when you do have a touch point with the customer. So pre-purchase, essentially, whenever you're driving traffic to Amazon, which, maybe you're not doing, maybe you are, but whenever you are, you want to have some type of data capture going on at that during that consumer flow, right? In regards to email, it would be something along the lines of a landing page, with an email opt-in in exchange for an incentive, right? But how do they get to that landing page? Well, let's say you're driving, Google ads or Facebook ads or Instagram ads, right, to Amazon. Along that journey, you can have a landing page in between where you're capturing that email in exchange for a certain incentive, right? Maybe it's, maybe the ad said something along the lines of get 20% off your purchase, right? In order to get that discount code, they have to opt into your email list. This same flow can be leveraged for any traffic, really, organic social media, influencers that you're working with, etc. And then, on that landing page, you can also have a pixel so that you're capturing even more data. And then when that person opts in to that email sign up, that's when there can be an automated email sequence that is triggered, which delivers on that incentive, brings them into a certain flow, which Andrea will talk about a little bit later, right? So again, trying to basically kind of mirror what you may do on D2C, but for that Amazon customer's journey. And then obviously hoping that they do make that purchase right away, along that flow. But even if not, you've captured their data so that you can remarket to them. Now, on the post-purchase side of things, so somebody's already purchased the product. You didn't have any pre-purchase kind of tactic in place, or maybe you did, and this is just supplementing that. But post-purchase is probably going to be the most easily adoptable by a lot of brands out there, because it doesn't matter if they're investing in off Amazon to Amazon marketing as part of the pre-purchase cycle, right? You're simply selling on Amazon already, and you want to have a relationship with that customer. Well, insert cards are going to be the most common way of doing this, and we have seen this with quite a few brands over the years. They are usually already doing something like this. Competitors are usually doing something like this. So this one isn't as I guess new, but the way in which you leverage insert cards can be more set up in a way to support email acquisition. So insert cards, can accomplish all kinds of different purposes. With a lot of products, warranty signups are very common, right? Sign up for our warranty. And then along that pathway, you're getting the email and or phone number, right? Now, I do want to be clear, Amazon policy does have a rule that basically says they don't want brands driving traffic through insert cards away from Amazon, right? But it's kind of one of those rules that are not really enforced, because if you think about all the products that you buy on Amazon, probably more than not are going to have some type of insert or packaging that has a link to the brand's website, the brand's, customer service email. So it's not like Amazon's going out there and telling everybody you can't, package your product in that way for Amazon. I mean, they are, but they aren't enforcing it. So really, it's a very risk adverse way to acquire emails. If it's not a warranty that makes sense for your product, you can always do a discount off your next purchase. A gift card, that works for Amazon. Something that, is ultimately going to be compelling to that person in your audience, right? Because every brand differs. A $5 off your next purchase might mean a lot to one customer and not so much to another customer. So think about your audience, think about their kind of socioeconomic status, think about, your product, right? Is a repeat purchase discount even relevant for your product, right? Or was your product just kind of a one-off, non-replenishable, right? So cater that incentive to that audience. And you're going to see a higher conversion rate with those people who then go to that landing page to get that incentive and sign up for your email list in order to get it. Typically, when we see performance on these, we're looking for about a 3 to 5% conversion rate, right? So it's not a ton, but it's still more than the brand that's doing nothing, right? 3 to 5% of all of their customers are signing up and providing their email. And then I know that the automated email sequence that comes in after the fact, again, we'll dig into a little bit more in a few slides. But Andrea, anything I missed on here that you wanted to add in?
I think the big thing for me here is that like you nailed it with like what's the incentive look like. I've worked with brands that are like, our warranty is our incentive, and for a lot of people things like that aren't an incentive, so it's really all about kind of like how do we convince them to make their life a little bit more difficult, which that sounds like a crazy thing for a marketer to say, but that's literally what we're doing in both these situations, right? I'm making it a little bit more difficult for you by saying like, hey, come sign up here and like I'll give you something to do that, but like you have to come do that. Whereas like normally when we make an Amazon purchase, and Nick, you and I have talked about this before, someone's like, oh, where'd you get that? I'm like, Amazon. And so like it's about building these relationships with the brand and the customer to try and encourage them to think about the item they got as not from Amazon but from you. And so when we're doing these things, we want to make sure that we're like providing the right incentives and talking to them directly about the things that they actually want to see in their own brand journey with your brand.
Yeah, no, exactly it. I bought from a brand rather than I bought from Amazon, that kind of psychological change. Like, there's a reason why that's not happening when people talk about their purchases, right? And it's because of that lack of control, which leads to a lack of having a deeper relationship with the customer. And ultimately, there's a lot of ways to build a relationship with the customer on Amazon, but of course, this is going to be a very strong way too. Now, outside of insert cards, you can also consider direct mail. Now, direct mail is starting to make a resurgence in the industry as far as people kind of considering it more seriously as part of their marketing mix. In particular, as more kind of traditional paid advertising, digital paid advertising goes. As far as the performance starts to kind of decrease, it's getting more expensive to acquire customers, to drive retention, et cetera, through ads, especially with the cookies on Google going away and all these things. Direct mail is becoming more and more relevant and more efficient. Now, we like to use direct mail with brands where it makes sense to create that post-purchase relationship with the customer. Now, I do want to be transparent, as always. Amazon does not technically approve of you remarketing to your Amazon customers through direct mail. The addresses, the shipping addresses that you acquire are meant to be used for fulfillment purposes and tax purposes. So take this strategy with a grain of salt and decide if it makes sense for your brand. There are other ways to leverage direct mail. that would work for this. If you're selling via FBM on Amazon, meaning you're not using Amazon's warehouses and you already are getting those shipping addresses to ship directly to that customer, that's going to be a more open way to have that customer's shipping address so that you can create that post-purchase experience with them. Same thing with getting insert cards into the shipments when you're sending them from your own warehouse. There are some brands that are open to kind of cross-pollination, meaning leveraging pre-existing email list through direct mail to drive back to Amazon, and then after that transaction, bringing them in to their Amazon kind of segment, saying, hey, this might have not been a customer that I originally acquired on Amazon, but they have repeat purchased on Amazon now, and so I'm going to bring them over to my Amazon segment, right? And that would be above board with Amazon policy. But if anyone has any questions on this, just like anything in the presentation, feel free to follow up with us after. I'm happy to go into more detail on how direct mail can be leveraged in a similar way to insert cards, to really get in front of that customer more intimately. All right, nurturing flows. I'll hand it off to you, Andrea.
Okay, so one of the things that I wanted to talk about when we talk about kind of incentivization, which is something we mentioned a couple slides ago, or maybe it was last slide, is something called a discount ladder. So conceptually, what we're trying to do in most cases, and what I found has worked really well for clients of mine who both have two sales channels, a direct to consumer and also an Amazon channel, is we're providing that first incentive where it's going to be a discount from your direct to consumer store. So that first discount that has, like, let's call it a 48-hour timeline, right? Like, I send it to you, you have 48 hours to use it. You can use it in my Shopify store or my, WooCommerce store, whatever it is. And then it expires. Then a few days later, I send you that second discount that's maybe a little bit of a higher price point or a higher discount point, and I send you back to Amazon to make that purchase there, because there's a reason that you didn't purchase on my direct-to-consumer site. So I'm trying to understand what that reason is. And usually, honestly, the reason is fast shipping, in my experience. So being able to say to them, like, here's a discount on our direct-to-consumer store. We get them back into our regular marketing cycle outside of the Amazon cycle, which, as Nick has mentioned, means that it's completely above board, right? So like, we have the opportunity now to send them marketing emails because they've come through our direct-to-consumer store. That second discount is kind of like that last hurrah. Like, I'm like, okay, couldn't get them to do what I wanted them to do. So let's send them right back to Amazon and get that discount there so we can encourage them to be a repeat buyer, even if it's not on our direct to consumer website. Now, when we see this discount ladder, I apply it in a couple of different ways. So we're going to go to the next slide. And what I'm going to show you here is 3 different nurturing flows that I think are going to be valuable to any brand who has an Amazon storefront where they're trying to nurture all their customers there. So when we talked about our acquisition pathways, the first thing I want to talk about here is that each acquisition pathway should have a different flow associated with it. Everyone's like, Andrea, that sounds like a lot of work. But I totally understand. It does. It does sound like a lot of work because it is. I'll drop a link later and we can talk about how you can get me to do that work for you. But in the interim, let's talk about what those flows look like. So with our first acquisition pathway, which is from someone who has come from outside of Amazon marketing and we're trying to send them to Amazon, we get them on Nick's landing page. They fill out that form. They get caught by our pixel. We're so excited, but they haven't made a purchase yet. Those people are going to enter into a specific welcome flow that's just for them. This welcome flow is going to include a lot of things. It's going to have some brand info, some product comparison, some features of your product, a push to your socials so that we can try and own them in a different audience there, purchase incentives, that discount ladder that I was just talking about. All of these different things should be included in your welcome flow in a variety of different ways. How you want to organize them is going to depend on your personal customer's journey. If you think that you have a product that requires a lot more information before someone pulls the trigger and makes that conversion, this is a good place to get them that information. So, like, for example, if I'm buying a $5 item on Amazon, I don't even really think about it. I don't even add those items to my cart, right? I just hit buy now and I swipe the little guy at the bottom and off it comes, right? And it's at my house in 24 hours. Great. The other alternate of that is, like, there is a jacket I'm looking at on Amazon right now. Couldn't tell you the brand, don't ask me, but it's like a $200 purchase. And so it's sitting in my cart and it has been for a while. Now, if they had at some point gotten my email address and sent me a welcome flow of emails about why their coat is the best one, then I would have a better chance of making that purchase. Right? It's just logic. Like when I'm trying to convince you to make a $200 purchase as a marketer, I'm not like, just do it. Like that doesn't work. It's not going to work. It's just not the way it is. But if in that moment I say to you like, hey, like not only is our coat warmer, more fashionable, more sustainably made, our company employs like X number of people living in your country or whatever it is, or like we support whatever, issue you care about, all these different things. Any of those different things can live inside that welcome flow and then are driving that person closer and closer to that purchase. Now, this is like something that maybe you're not driving traffic from somewhere else and you can't have this, but you're not going to put this same welcome flow for someone who's a post-purchase customer. So similarly, when we get someone through that post-purchase page, we're giving them completely different information, right? Because yes, we want them to have brand info and we want them to love our brand and all of those different things. But at this point, I'm not trying as much to convince you to sell as I am trying to convince you to care about our brand. So the difference between that welcome flow and that post-purchase flow is going to be what your intent is as the customer, right? So in this post-purchase flow, what I want to include is like educational content. How do I use the product? How do I get like the best life out of this product? So again, in the example of my coat, it's going to be like, hey, just a reminder, this is a dry clean only item, right? So like make sure get the longest lasting like lifetime out of this $200 coat that you just bought, because we're going to make sure that you're taking it to get dry cleaned because we're reminding you to do that rather than just putting it in my washing machine and ruining it immediately, which classic Andrea. So like would do, right? So like you got to understand kind of who you're talking to and how we're talking to them. Did you want to say something, Nick? Am I being too off
No,
brand?
no, I love it. I love it. And it's the nurturing side is obviously critical. And I'll talk about in a little bit, just like some very like bare bones ways to kind of start this process. But the nurturing flow is like the ideal, I think, kind of scope of how brands should be approaching email marketing at kind of full scale.
Yeah, absolutely. And these are things you could apply to your regular post-purchase flow as well. That's not
Yeah.
to do with Amazon, but specifically for Amazon, what we really want to make sure we're doing is trying to get their information as many places as possible. So like I don't always do a push to social media, like follow us on TikTok, follow us on Instagram. I don't always do that in a post-purchase, but for this, I absolutely would. Because again, the more spots where we can own all the information for this audience is the more we know about them, is the more we can use, is the better we nurture them, is the better customer they become. So being able to kind of stack all those things together is like a big part of it. And then the last one, our last and certainly not least in terms of nurturing flows that are very important, is going to be your win back flow. Now, within most ESPs, one of the issues that we come across is that we can't use purchase data in the same way that we would from, say, a Shopify store. So say you have a setup that's like Klaviyo and Shopify. Easy, right? I have both those things. Someone makes a purchase, that metric pulls right into Klaviyo. I don't have to think twice about it. The difference here is that I can't see exactly when someone purchased on Amazon just in Klaviyo. Like there's a lot of manual effort that goes into getting that information in there. So the way that we would set up a win back flow for someone who has an Amazon list is I would use the day that they registered for that post-purchase flow as the trigger for the win back flow. So what I mean to say is, say I sell to Nick last week, he receives the product. 7 days later, he's like, oh, I just found this insert card that I almost threw out on garbage day. He goes, he registers for an email. I'm like, sick. He gets his post-purchase. We send that all to him. 2 months later, based on the day that he signed up to that form, I'm going to start sending him a win back flow. What that win back flow looks like is it's like a little bit more brand info. It's like, we know you love our product because we know our products are great. The base assumption here is that everyone in the webinar has an excellent product that people would want to repurchase. That's where we're starting from. So about 2 months later, I say like, oh, like it's time for you to repurchase. I send you some more brand info. I talk about how wonderful our brand is, how much we love and care about their support, all these other things. Provide them an incentive to repurchase, right? Especially if it's a replenishable item, this is a key one. So if I say like, oh, if you repurchase or if you subscribe and save on Amazon, you're going to save X number of dollars for each time you buy this item. when I'm pushing that, that's the time that we're trying to get them to purchase again, right? So I'm saying all these things. I'm like, oh, like look how great our product is. We go back to some of those things that we see in the welcome flow where we're comparing features, right? Doing all those like little things. Another push to socials, because again, we want their information in as many places as possible. And this is also a really good time to talk about some of the benefits of your direct to consumer site. So if on your direct to consumer site, you're like, I have a loyalty program, right? I have a loyalty program, or I have a referral incentive, or I have whatever that is. This is a really good place to insert that tech stack, because you can say like, okay, so here's another way that I'm trying to loop them back into the sales cycle. And all those retention tools, that's where we're really going to see a lot of value, is in this win back flow. Does anyone have any questions about these nurturing flows? I know I speak really quickly, so like if there's anything you need information on, just let me know.
Yeah, and on that note, if anyone has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. We'll be sure to answer before the end of the webinar. But no, this has been really great stuff. I mean, and like you mentioned, this is adoptable for D2C, adoptable for Amazon, right? So these are just these are a lot of best practices that shouldn't be ignored, especially for your Amazon email marketing kind of strategy at scale. So really good stuff, Andrea. And I think right at the end, we'll also be digging in a little bit more around the kind of loyalty and referral side of things. So be sure to hang on until then. All right, manual automations. Well, after you just went over all these amazing nurturing flows, it makes my manual automations look very basic. But I think that these manual automations have a place at least at the beginning. And if you don't have the resources, if you don't have the Flowium team to help you build out all of these flows, and this is really kind of just a starting point. So with D2C, right, being able to drive repeat purchase through email marketing automations is critical. Being able to drive subscribe and save signups through automations is also critical if you have a replenishable product. And so Andrea went over a great number of ways on how to build nurturing flows to help accomplish these goals and more. Something that some of our brands are open to doing at a starting point, when at first this might seem a little foreign to them, is basically coming up with two different types of campaigns to run kind of on a recurring basis, whether that be monthly or bi-weekly. And one of them is just a repeat purchase accelerator. So using Amazon's reporting data, we can identify who is a first-time purchaser, right? Who's only purchased from the brand on Amazon once. And usually we look back about 365 days. So we segment those one-time purchasers. We also make sure that they haven't enrolled into subscribe and save already. Sometimes first-time purchasers do subscribe. And so we isolate that segment of customers, and then we retarget them through off Amazon email with some type of incentive, or we add them to a nurturing flow where we can kind of build them up to that point where they are ready for that repeat purchase. Similarly, but different, subscribe and save accelerator. This is where we segment the repeat purchasers. You can define repeat, as people who have purchased 2 or more times, 3 or more times, right? If you want it to be a little bit more effective in converting them to subscribe and save, the more times that they've used the product, the more likely that they are going to sign up for subscribe and save. But typically we start with 2+ orders, and we can always hit them back with another follow-up next time they purchase. And essentially what we do is we offer them an introductory offer for their subscription. So let's say you have a 15% a 10% subscribe and save discount normally, or a 5% subscribe and save discount normally, right? Those are the two types of discounts that Amazon allows brands to control themselves. Well, this email would basically say, hey, for a limited time only, right? You put some urgency behind that, add a deadline. For the next 48 hours, we're going to be giving an additional 20% off on top of the normal 10. So for the next 48 hours, you're going to get 30% off your first subscribe and save order. And then every order thereafter is going to be at that normal 10%. So it's basically an introductory offer that you've probably seen or done yourself on D2C. It's just a little cherry on top. You can create this discount using a subscribe and save exclusive coupon. Now, a subscribe and save exclusive coupon would be public, so you have to keep in mind that you do have you are going to have other people outside of those emails, those email lists that can take action on that. If you don't want it to be public, you can create a discount code. Now, Amazon doesn't have a parameter where you can create a discount code just for subscribe and save orders, unfortunately. However, you can position it in that way. And most customers, they're not savvy enough to where they know, oh, this is a discount code I can use on a one-time order. If you tell them it's a code for a subscribe and save order, they're gonna, most likely add a subscribe and save order to their cart and use that code accordingly. And you can track this anyway. So give them that cherry on top, that intro offer, and convert that repeat purchase to subscribe and save customer, which on Amazon, depending on your category, a subscribe and save customer is usually worth about 2 to 3x a normal customer. So leaning into retention, leaning into lifetime value, leaning into making that customer more of a super customer or an ambassador, hence the title of this webinar today. And then Amazon win back cases. I think Andrea went over great opportunities for that. Where we've really seen success with this is particularly with brands who maybe haven't been open to driving email to Amazon, right? They're like, no, I want to preserve my emails for D2C. And we're like, okay, but what about those emails of those customers who have gone dormant or cold, right? You've basically written them off. You're not even marketing to them anymore, right? Can we give them an Amazon offer, right? And I think every time I've proposed that, they've said yes, why not, no risk. And they've been pleasantly surprised by the results. I mean, we've even gone to customers who the brand can define if they're cold, right? How they're cold. Have they not purchased in 1 month, 1 year, right? It's up to I'll leave it up to the brand to give that definition if they're being super cautious. And not only do we get customers to come back and purchase, but we've even seen success getting them to subscribe. We did one case study where we were able to get, I think it was like 8% of the cold customers to come back and subscribe. So, that's a heavier lift, and we were able to make a big win there. So these are 3 kind of low-hanging kind of fruit type of campaigns or manual automations that you can set up and start seeing success early on. And then when you really want to, give it your best foot forward, that's when you take it to the next level with the nurturing flows. And by the way, you can, move them over to nurturing flows that aren't even related to Amazon, right? That's your call. And I think that's probably a good segue into what we're going to talk about in just a moment around, really making that customer into a brand ambassador because they love the brand so much and you've nurtured them so well. Last thing I'll say on this, just some statistics. So typically when we do repeat purchase accelerators, we see anywhere from a 1 to 5% conversion rate on the total recipients list, right? So you send it to 1,000 people, we're seeing about 10 to 50 of those people come back and take action. When we do the subscribe and save accelerator, right, heavier ask, we see about 0.5% to 2% of those total customers subscribe. But again, that subscribe and save customer is usually worth 2 to 3x the normal customer. So when you pencil that out, it actually is an even stronger ROI across their lifetime value. So again, not something to be slept on here. This can build up incrementally as you build up that email list. We don't even have it in this deck, but I just thought of it, so I'm going to throw it out there. Email lists are super powerful on Amazon for product launches and events, right? name of the game on Amazon for launching products, like one of the names of the game, I guess, is like having a ready to buy audience that you can tap into to help grease up that Amazon algorithm during that first 30 days, which is called the honeymoon period. So if you can show that Amazon algorithm that your product is here to stay and it means business, they're going to boost you up in the organic rankings a lot more quickly if you show it some love in those first 30 days. So if you're building up an email list now, when you go to launch a new product, you're going to have a much more successful launch because you can tap into those people. Same thing for events, right? Prime Day, Black Friday, Cyber Monday. If you've got that Amazon ready to buy customer, you're going to be able to drive a lot more traffic for those events. And the beauty of the Amazon algorithm is that traffic indirectly drives up your organic ranking and organic sales, thereby exposing your products in your event to a lot more people organically. So there's always this kind of direct and indirect attribution with whenever you're driving traffic to Amazon, and email marketing plays into that very well. All right, how to keep people purchasing. I'm just gonna say like one line here, and then I'll hand it off to you, Andrea. Direct to everywhere. DTE. This is something that I'd like to think we coined at Vendo many years ago. Who knows? I'm sure plenty of people are using it nowadays, and maybe came up with it around the same time. But direct to everywhere. That's kind of our philosophy on how we work with our brands. Yes, at Vendo, we are a marketplace first agency. Amazon, Walmart, and other marketplaces, TikTok Shop too. But we also want to bring a value prop that is synergistic with your other channels. And so just like I've said many times already, if you want to use these Amazon customers to drive them back to D2C or other channels, do that, right? Do that because I think nowadays you want to be where your customers are, not where you want them to be. But Andrea, what are your thoughts on that?
That's exactly what I always say, actually, is
Yeah.
like go to where your customers are. So a big part of email marketing is understanding what your customers want and then telling them how you can give it to them. They've given you a direct line to talk to them, right? So like the one I always use, and like everyone always like laughs when I say this, but it's like, say I'm out at a bar and a man is hitting on me, right? Happens all the time. But they're talking to me, and what information I decide to give them should educate what they communicate with me with, right? So if I say text me later and I give them my phone number and they call me, then they've told me already that they don't care what I want, right? So we can apply these same fundamentals of communication and living life to your email marketing. And if somebody tells us like, hey, like I only want to buy on Amazon and I've been only buying on Amazon and I'm going to continue only buying on Amazon, I'm not going to keep trying to push them towards direct to consumer. I'm not going to spend effort and energy being like, no, come here, no, come here, when they've been very clear. They've made 17 purchases on Amazon and 0 on direct to consumer. Why am I going to try to continue to push them there? We know that this is what they like. This is what they want to do. So by doing a direct to everywhere approach, where we're taking on like, okay, so we're going to say, we will send you to wherever you are most likely to make a purchase, with sometimes providing incentives for the other channels, then we're really giving them exactly what they want. The other thing I would say here too is that like when we are talking about, okay, so in our welcome, Nick's welcome landing page that we're trying to get their email from, he's including a pixel on that page so we can remarket to them from wherever they came from and then keep reminding them about our brand. These are all the really important things, right? Like, and when I say things like marketing engine, what I'm talking about is that there are many different inputs, right? And all of them are important, but in different ways. But all of them work together to drive the car, right? That's the whole purpose of the marketing engine analogy, is that like, yeah, your car will run without windshield wiper fluid until you get stuck in a snowstorm and you're like, well, my windshield's frozen, right? Like, and so understanding that even though that one piece might not be the most important thing, if we still have it, then we're still providing the right type of engine for your marketing to thrive in. The other thing I'll say here is when we're talking about all these channels and direct to everywhere and, you know, direct to consumer versus Amazon versus all these different things, it's really important that you have the appropriate tech stack to support what you're trying to do. Now, I live in Canada, so one of the things that I am obsessed with is the types of loyalty that happen in the States. It is crazy to me. You walk into a mall in the States and every store has a loyalty program. Every loyalty program has crazy deals. There's certain places where like you literally can't walk in without them trying to get you a credit card, right? And the reason they're trying to get you that credit card and the reason they're trying to sell it to you is they're like, you can get an extra 10,000 points if you sign up for our credit card today. And I'm like, I don't want your credit card. I don't live in this country. I don't want this. But we can take those same things and kind of apply them to our direct consumer store or e-commerce stores and say like, okay, so what type of incentive can we offer you that will make you keep coming back? And like, there's no better way to make someone come back to your store than to give them something for free. However, if you do that all the time, you have no business. That's where loyalty comes in, right? Is that I can say to you, the more purchases you make is the more free things I'm going to give you, which means that I can still exist as a business, but you still get your free things. So when you're looking at kind of like the environment that you're creating, these are some things that are really important to think about. Similarly, we live in a world that is influencer driven. Influencer driven could mean anything to anyone, right? It could be literally like the people we call content creators and influencers on social media. It could also be just people who are well known in your industry, right? We work with brands who are like fly fishing brands. I personally have never been fly fishing. The likelihood of me going fly fishing, slim. But I do understand that the customer for fly fishing, this guy trusts the same guy who's been talking about all the fly fishing lures for the last 10 years. So if we can get that guy who's on YouTube talking about those fly fishing reels and rods and all sorts of things, there's so many items to do with fly fishing, but like that guy's talking about these products and we sell them. Like, how do we leverage that? How do we leverage these influencers and where do we send them? And how do we get people to engage with this expert opinion or this influencer opinion? So when we're using all of these different pieces together, that's when we see the most success, right? Because again, without referrals, reviews, loyalty, UGC, incentives, like we're really just like pushing a rock, right? Instead of firing up an engine. So let's think about how else, what other things we can add and what other components you can include to make your store or your product more appealing to your customer.
Excellent. Beautifully said. I like the fly fishing example. I actually went fly fishing for the first time recently, so it
What was
resonated.
it like?
It was very peaceful. Well, actually, the first hour was frustrating. Then you catch your first fish and you're so pumped up, and that gives you the motivation and excitement to make it to the end. And then it becomes peaceful because you've caught your first fish. You're like, I can relax now. I'm accomplished.
You can tell that we're data-driven marketers because that's how I feel when like a customer does really well on a campaign or a flow. I'm like, yes, let's do more. Like I can't do it. It's so bad.
Well, I think this is a good segue into one of the questions we got from the audience, and it's a great question. So thank you for asking. Do you send each client both D2C and Amazon campaigns? How do you decide who gets who? Because I do see that you overlap website Amazon channels in the flows. Yes, so I think some of the lines might be getting blurred here and how we're showing things off, but ultimately it's up to, I would say it's up to the brand, you and the brands and your goals for the brand, right? Which, the channel that you want to support the most may change week to week, month to month, year to year. More commonly, I would say that it's kind of a year to year type change, but occasionally, you have certain retailers throughout the year that you need to show some extra love to, whether it's, in store, promotions that are happening, end caps, deals that you're running. Or maybe you're falling behind on your sales velocity at a certain retailer or marketplace, and you need to boost that run rate, right? So you're going to start showing it some more love. As far as comparing D2C and Amazon specifically goes, though, it is a matter of what's your focus, right? Some brands, they'll say, hey, I want to drive more to D2C because my margins are better there. Some brands will say, I want to drive more to Amazon because my cost of acquiring a customer is better there. And I know that if it's new to brand customer, that's going to be more effective. But I also know that if I can grease up that algorithm with more traffic and sales, it's going to allow me to be seen by more new to brand customers, right? So you got to think about your goals. Are you growth focused? Are you profit focused? How do your margins differ from placement to placement? I'll say, like, with our own in-house brand here at Vendo, which I've had the opportunity to lead the marketing for the last 4 years or so. We got to a point where we were kind of channel agnostic between Amazon and D2C. Sure, we might have a more heavy focus on purchase on our site in one email. We might have a more heavy focus on purchase on Amazon in one email, but we always have in the footer the option for both. So the footer will always have shop our site, and it will always have shop on Amazon, because again, direct to everywhere, being where customers want to be, not where you want them to be. We want customers to have the easiest route to purchase as possible. And even if that might mean, we might take a hit in a margin, some on one of them, we want to have that customer be happy. And so over time of testing the two different pathways, we decided, hey, let's just keep our footer consistently with both options. Something that we haven't mentioned, but is important for that example as well in general, using Amazon attribution links, right? Amazon attribution allows you to create links so that you can track clicks, add to carts, units sold, revenue. Always use attribution links. Use unique attribution links so that you can track those back to each email, whether it be part of a flow or a one-off. And then that way you can kind of compare the data around what is driving the most sales from which emails, so on and so forth. So hopefully that answers your question. I know it's not a perfect answer, but it is customizable. Andrea, anything to add to that?
Yeah. So one thing I'm going to add is that when I'm talking about email flows, the only way to get into those flows is to sign up through those specific sign up forms, right? So the trigger is not going to be the same as for your direct to consumer post purchase, where that's going to be, hey, your trigger is your Shopify checkout completed. Right. So when we're talking about flows specifically, I'm not as concerned about overlap. The way that you would get around that is you would set up filters that say, like, if this person enters this flow, take them out of that one, and those sorts of things. And that's how we avoid that duplication there in terms of who we're sending it to. The other thing I'll say in terms of campaigns, or like one-off sends or individual email sends, when you're looking at your segmentation, I'm going to try not to be too like wild. But when you're looking at your segmentation for each individual email, you're going to want to tailor your messaging towards those people. So where Nick is saying, like, we have become channel agnostic because we've realized that this is what's happening, I would assume, and Nick, you can correct me if I'm wrong, prior to deciding to be channel agnostic, we're sending different emails to different people.
Yeah.
And we're doing that by saying, like, this person entered the list through this form, and this form is only accessible to Amazon people, or this person entered the form through our direct to consumer website, or this person filled out the form that we have in our Instagram bio, or this person filled out the form that we have in our TikTok bio. And each of those forms should be different, because each of those forms will then put people into a different list within your ESP. And within your ESP, then you have different lists that you can say, like, okay, I want people who are from the direct consumer list who have engaged with an email in the last 30 days. Those are your hyper engaged direct to consumer list. Then you want to do the same thing for Amazon and say, like, these are our list of people from Amazon who came through these various forms. Here's the 30-day engaged version of that. These are the people who've been clicking on our emails through the last 30 days. When we're segmenting out people, we want to do the same thing. So when I'm saying, like, hey, I want to give a specifically Amazon discount to specifically Amazon customers, I'm excluding anyone who has purchased on my direct to consumer site in the last 30 days. Right? And so by using the include and exclude segmentation, we're customizing the messaging to each individual person from a campaign perspective. Now, of course, that's not to say, and I would argue that you could send the same campaigns to some people, depending on, again, what Nick said, what your goal is. Because if someone is saying to me, like, hey, it's Black Friday and my margins are better on my direct to consumer website, let's just send it to everybody on the list, whether they were Amazon original or direct to consumer original, I'm like, yep, You should do that. Like, if your margins are that much better and you think your deal is that good, then yes, do that. Can't hurt.
100%. Yeah. And there's so many factors that can go into it, right? Like, I know with some of our brands, they're very interested in as a specific example, appealing to buyers of retailers that they want to get into. But buyers for retailers are increasingly looking at Amazon performance, reviews, etc., as part of that consideration process. And so if you haven't really built up your Amazon business, that can actually hurt your potential to succeed in other channels or even get into other channels. So I've seen situations where brands are like, we're going to focus on Amazon because we're a new brand. We know acquisition costs are more affordable there now. We know that our buyers and retail are going to be excited to see that. And so we're actually going to favor Amazon rather than our D2C site for those goals, right? So there's qualitative and quantitative goals that need to be considered, and the Amazon algorithm is always kind of the curveball too, as far as like getting your brand out there to more people goes, and how this additional traffic can help support that. But yeah, to your point, Andrea, like segmentation, understanding the goals, and making sure that those audiences are segmented in a way that you can understand and direct them to a place that makes more sense to them. That's very strategically recommended too, outside of just kind of the more general channel agnostic kind of approach that more and more brands seem to be taking. And one of the challenging things with Amazon is definitely the reporting and the integrations, right? It's not like all of this data can just seamlessly be pulled back into Klaviyo or MailChimp or an ESP. So it is challenging. There are manual ways to export, purchase data, so you can see, like I said, with attribution links, you can see which person in which, email segment or audience segment purchased through that link. You can see through discount codes, right? You can see through Amazon customer anonymized identifiers. So every Amazon customer has an anonymized email that's unique to them. And so this is how you can kind of cross-check for repeat purchases, subscribe and save, etc. So there's a lot to unpack there just in that even. And I'm happy to go through that with anybody, after the webinar, and have a one-off kind of conversation or an ongoing conversation. Like we're here for you. If you'd like Vendo to do an audit of your account or provide any kind of recommendations, please reach out. And there's one thing I kind of feel bad about doing this, but I want to let everyone know that there is a way to get about 50 to 60% of your Amazon customer emails. And I couldn't exactly share it today, but directly in a private conversation, I'd be happy to elaborate more. But I think through product insert cards, through direct mail marketing, you're going to get around 10% of your Amazon customer emails. That's a big chunk compared to your competitors that most likely are not doing direct mail and or product insert cards. Pre-purchase, right? Depending on the scale of your pre-purchase kind of traffic driving machine, you can really add many more customers onto there and bring that up to 20-30% of your customers, or even more really. So there's more to talk about here, but hopefully everyone's kind of gotten some actionable takeaways. I know that's always important. If you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to me. My email is here on the screen, nicholas@vendocommerce.com. That's Nicolas, no H for those of you who can't see the screen. And feel free to also follow up when we send a recording in the next few days or so. Andrea, this has been so awesome. It's really been great to partner with you on this and Flowium. Where can people find you, find Flowium?
Yeah, great news. You can email me too, andrea@flowium.com.
Perfect. Well, the good thing is if you didn't get your questions answered or you have more thoughts, we're both open and willing to continue the conversation. Thank you everyone who joined today. But other than that, we'll see you next time. Thanks.